Hi everybody, it's Gail from Gail's Bookish Things. We're going to do a process video today on Psalm 66. I'm focusing on verses 10 through 12, but it is, as all the Psalms, in my opinion, a great chapter to read. But I want to illustrate in my margin today this ending part of verse 12. We went through fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance. So I'm going to be playing around with how I want to illustrate those three aspects: fire, water, and abundance. And I've thought of a bunch of things before I started this, but as is what I usually do, it kind of unfolds as I do it. So we'll go ahead and do this. I'll put it on the speed up play and voiceover, and here we go. So I have my Neocolor 2 out, my Neocolors 2. And I'm picking the color that I want to make the fire with. So I'm sketching that in. I really have a hard time drawing fire. I guess that's not a terrible character flaw, but I've never been able to make it look good. It almost looks like a flower, but I'm trying. I'm using a orangey red. I'm adding this more pure orangey or even an orange yellow to it and filling it in. The Neocolors are water soluble. So I'm planning on going back and blending that a little. I'm adding highlights of yellow here, and then I'm putting blue at the base of the fire because from what I've learned, and I think that's right, it's more blue towards the very center where it's more hot. So I'm just leaving that for now. I'm planning on going back with water in just a little bit. And here I'm trying to get this kind of dauber thing to work. It just seems like it's kind of dry. I don't have real good luck with some of these inks sometimes like this, but I got it going enough. Drawing in some rough, wavy looking water. I do like those. They're nice to use, but sometimes they just seem to run a little dry. I was going to use that brush, but decided to use my water brush, and I'm just getting the water flow going and cleaning it. I'm trying to wet that to activate it, and it looks like that's one of those things where that doesn't really happen once it's set on the paper. So I'm taking another Neocolor, dipping it in water, and filling in my waves, and just getting rid of some of the white space there to make it look like rougher water. Now I'm using my water brush and activating the Neocolors. They're super cool. They're like crayons in a sense, but very smooth, and they are also activated by water, and you can get more of a watercolor effect with them. They're a lot of fun to use. I don't always get them out just because of the water element, but when I do it, I enjoy working with them and just playing around with that kind of medium. So I'm thinking what I want to do now. What do I want to add? I want to do something now that conveys the idea of abundance. And so I had torn out these pages ahead of time from my little stash of books that I've obtained from the library that I use for journaling. And I liked this picture because to me it seemed peaceful, it seemed abundant. I liked this one of the rainforest because again that kind of conveyed an idea of rest and relaxation and calmness. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can attach it so that we flip through it. So there's the fire, the water, and then to a place of abundance. I'm tearing this one so it will fit in the margin. And that I think that I would really like that in my journal at some point. But I don't feel for sure that the water and the flame is working together quite right with the book pages. So I decided to get out my Illustrated Faith alpha stamps. I forget the name of this particular collection, but they're really fun and playful looking and different sizes. I like the olive green. I'm kind of considering that. That's my newest color. And then the mauve lawn, I think, is the one that I decide on because I feel like the tones or the shades of these colors will work together better. So I get out my stamps, trying to kind of gather together the ones I'm going to need. I am missing my capital A. I don't know what happened to it. It was lost along the way somewhere. So I use the V upside down to be the A. I think what happened is when I got rid of some of the sets that I rarely used, it must have been mixed in with that, because I have not been able to find my letter A, capital A. So I'm just placing out the cling stamps here to get an idea of how everything's going to fit. Too many times I have done stamping. I do it all the time, and it just doesn't quite fit. So I wanted to kind of spread those out, place those a little bit to make sure that the start and the end of the word abundance fit okay on the page. I'm doing this page in honor of my Swedish friend. She's at Bible Inspiration. You can go look at her on Instagram. She posts the most beautiful pages, and she had this passage journal the other day, and I told her I love that so much. I love the meaning of the verses, and I wanted to do a page that was inspired from her Bible journal entry. So check her out at Bible Inspiration, and Bible spelled Bibel because it's Swedish spelling. So I'm finishing up my letters. Had a little bit trouble of some of those actually showing up. Sometimes if there's bulk on the page and when you stamp it, it doesn't come out exactly clear or fully stamped. So sometimes I have to go back and do a letter once or twice more. I like how this is coming together though. And I'm happy that I chose to do the word stamp versus doing the book page. I think the book page is going to really be a pretty addition sometime, but in this sense it didn't quite work, and I did so much of my page being the water, there wasn't enough room to add the abundance element that I wanted to be sure to get in there. As I'm doing this voiceover, I'm actually looking at the flame, and it didn't look too bad. Really, at this point, it was okay. But I tried my Sharpie pen, and these neocolors and things just make that not work. And it's a good way of wrecking your black outlining pens or writing pens. So I didn't do that, and I tried a little bit of white. And then here I'm just adding some of that Unisigno white gel pen to add some texture to the waves, a little bit of highlight. I'm trying my blue Distress ink dauber thing, and it just wasn't coming out on that little tray, so I opted for some of the Distress inks. Instead, I have Q-tips bundled together, and I'm kind of like doing little patches of those all over to look like sea spray, like the waves and the splashes of water coming out all over. I got that idea a year or so ago by watching another video, so it's not unique to me, but it's a fun way of making waves. Taking my Faber-Castell Pit pens, I think they're called, with the brush tip, trying to add a little more depth of color to the flame. And I have a copper-colored, it's like a Pentel sparkle pen or something. And I'm just trying to add a little dimension to make that flame look more intense and like with dimension in it. And it's just looking okay. At this point, it's not so bad, but I'm not as keen on it as the water. I think the water turned out better. So I decided to now ink up my stamps again, and I'm looking for the letters to do the word fire. So I'm hitting the main elements, the fire, the water, and then abundance, of course, is already finished at the bottom. I used the orange I had in my little collection. I just have about 9 or 10 of these little small Distress inks. I think this one was like orange marmalade. The E obviously isn't showing up well. I had to push it from underneath the page to get the color to come through. But I will work with that more later. And then I'm using this turquoise. I think it's like a peacock color, or it might be the turquoise. And I'm going to do water, and I'm getting the stamps ready for that. And I'll just go ahead and stamp the word water in a little bit deeper shade of blue across the waves so it shows up more. Obviously this isn't a realistic sea color, but I like to use the really pretty blues to represent seawater. I've never seen ocean water quite that blue, but I know it exists somewhere. Or so I've seen pictures of it. But I don't know if those kind of blue seas get rough water or not. So here's the water, but I just love how these words turn out. I like the randomness to them. I think it's really a neat set. I use this one really pretty often. It's one of my favorites. So now I'm thinking what to do with the flames. I just don't like it. I don't think it looks like a fire. I think it looks like a flower. So I'm adding a little more color with the Pentel Sparkle pens, I think is what I have here. I'm outlining fire so that stands out just a little bit more on the page. I felt like it was a little bit faint, but it's looking okay. And as so here comes the thing that I probably shouldn't have done. And I tried to, so I'm still adding color. Hang on. That'll come in just a minute when I really botch it up. I should have left well enough alone. There's an art to that. I was here picking out the color that I wanted to use to highlight the main part of the passage. The main thing, the fire, water, and abundance, is from verse 12, but I think it's 10 through 12 that I'm focusing on here, but definitely worth reading the whole chapter as always. That's a pretty neat passage, and there's so many things that would have been fun to journal. I always like to date stamp. I sometimes forget to do that. I'm using my Illustrated Faith date stamp here. It's a little bit smaller than my Make-A-Sides one, but I didn't want to overpower the lettering with a big date on there in this instance. Sometimes I do like that effect. So I just do it up on the top with the turquoisey color to kind of tie in all the colors I've used, which basically were orange and blue and green. And that E there is just not showing. It looks like fur, water, and abundance. So now this is the bad. This is where it all goes downhill. I tried to outline the flames with my black Faber-Castell brush tip pen. Ugh, not happy with that at all. It definitely officially looks like a flower now. And I don't know what to do. So I'm frustrated with it because I'm pretty happy with everything else. But in the meantime, I just ignore it and think it'll be okay. I'm looking for a tab. With my illustrating Bible, I'm trying to add a ribbon or a tab to each entry, or at least almost all of them. I thought there I might stamp a word on the plain tab. I have these cut out from calendars, some of the miscellaneous ones from old calendar pictures. I like the one that says thank you in the gold lettering, because God brings us through these difficult times. And at the end, when we're experiencing the abundance, the other side of the trial, it really does cause us to feel gratitude and rejoicing and thanksgiving. But I'm just not sure. I don't know where to place it. It's not feeling quite right. So I ink it up a little bit and think maybe if I add some color to the surrounding edges that I'll like that better. And I like it okay. But nothing is really quite feeling right to me. So I decide to do that later. Hating my flame, I do some ink and make on a separate piece of paper a new flame. I use those same ink pads. Okay, so that wraps up my process video. I really messed up on the fire here. I didn't like how it was before you saw it. It looked like a flower or a strange water lily or something. So what I did, you saw me do some of that. I just took this Tomoe River paper and I used my these stamps, the Tim Holtz Distress Inks. And I'll zoom in there and you can see I just like swirled it upward on the paper, kind of like a big flame would go. I cut it out and I covered up the old so-called flower, and then I added some gold highlights from my Pentel Sparkle pens. And then on the water, I added more dots of various kinds of blues after also having swirled in the waves a little bit more. These little marks here were with my white ink pen. I'll show you, pardon the shaking camera, but I used this for that. And it really does not do the Sharpie pens well to go over any kind of ink or paint, so I need to remember not to do that. And then I just took a little bit of more of the Pentel pens, I'll show you in just a second, and added the little dots around the word abundance to give it some life. And as you can see, I kind of did it in an up and down motion to kind of convey liveliness. So there, that was really fun. I always like to stamp my page. I did that on the top, and as you could see, I couldn't decide on the tab, so I will try to figure that one out later. I like to tab all my entries in this Bible, or put some kind of ribbon bow. As you can see, I've got some of those on the top here, so I will mess around with that later. Well, there you go. Thank you for watching that rather long process video, but I hope it gave you some ideas, and I hope these verses encouraged you. And if you're going through a fire or a water time, remember that in Christ we have hope, and it will lead to a place of spiritual abundance in our souls, if not also in our lives. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.